So we're back another week. I think for this week, this call is going to be probably a little bit shorter than the others. We're going to be mostly focusing on just finishing off the design, and then we're going to building, and then obviously marketing. So I think this call is going to be mostly Daniel just updating us on one of the last elements of the design, which is the briefs, and then we're going to actually building it. Two things that I just want to quickly say before we do that is first of all, I think it would be quite useful for us to talk about our beliefs as far as design goes. We spoke about this yesterday, but I think a lot of people think design is not worth, the money or the time. And I very much disagree with that. So I think that would be the first good thing for us to chat about. I then have sent a long loom to Daniel's team going over my opinion on the design language, the branding, all that stuff, which I'll add into this. And we've sort of finished the branding, at least, and the design language. Now it's just a case of building it. But briefly, I just want to also just talk about what I've been doing on the marketing standpoint. So the reason why I pushed, let's get the brand identity, let's get the design done, is because I want to just go straight into let's throw up a landing page. Let's just put what we think the features and USPs are going to be, and then let's start building a waiting list. I've been talking to loads of customers, which I think most people don't do, first of all, in the SaaS world. And the response, I was telling Daniel, the response has genuinely been way better than I anticipated, which is a good thing. I'm not complaining. But it just goes to show that even though we've been doing this a long time, I didn't expect the results that we've got. And, that just goes to show that you just have to do something and leave your expectations at the door. First of all, the response to this series has completely beat my expectations. People have really been enjoying it. And also the comments have actually been useful. I had a full-on chat with some developer about the API stuff yesterday. But also a lot of people have been just approaching me saying hey dude, I've been watching it. As soon as the product's ready, let me know. I want to join the waiting list. So I genuinely think I just have a premonition feeling that we're onto something that people need and want. I'm going to share my screen very briefly. I don't have too much to show. The main thing that I just want to show quickly is this Slack message. So I received this literally this morning, literally 35 minutes ago. It's from a friend of mine, and we're chatting about a few things, and he's building out his product. And basically he was just saying he needs simple payments ASAP. And I'm showing this just as an example, but I've received several just like this. In fact, I'm actually launching my own product page, and I need simple payments for myself because of the type of pricing strategy that I want to do. So I've got loads of messages just like this. Also just from chatting to people and, people coming up to me. I was at an event recently, little white party, actually. Let's call it what it was, an all white party, not an event. And a lot of people are kind of in this internet marketing world, and they approached me and said, hey, I love what you guys have been doing. I really need this. It solves a problem. I already use this. I would prefer to use you, et cetera, et cetera. And so that response just really has shocked me, and it's been really good. So I think we're pretty much onto product market fit. I think we need to flesh out a few other things. And I'm enjoying building the series thus far. So Daniel, before we go into sort of what you guys have been building, can you just reiterate what you said yesterday from the standpoint of why you think design is important? Because, a lot of people think, building a design language and spending money and time on an icon and colors and all that stuff is stupid. I very much am the opposite. I made my point yesterday. I think, you have to get excited about something to build something good. And how can you be excited about it if you don't even know what it's going to look like? But because you obviously deal with a lot of people kind of controlling their budget, where are we going to spend money on design? What are we going to do? I'd love to, kind of hear your insight there.
Yeah, so I think I personally have it's very funny. I have this very strong love-hate relationship when it comes to branding and design. I think it's to some degree incredibly important, but on the other hand, I also try and not attach myself emotionally to those decisions. I think that we are very aligned when it comes to that. And the funny thing I brought up yesterday was that if I were to own HubSpot, I would not be proud to show people that I own that company, because it's just, and again, I think also that goes with that we're building for a different generation. HubSpot has, a very, very big audience for, a lot of pretty old businesses and even some new businesses that just kind of try and bite the bullet by using a product that has such a poor UX UI design. But I think the product in itself says it, right? It's simple payments. We want to make things as simple as possible. And I think with a product like that, just something very appealing, visually aesthetic, in line with simplicity, which is what we're building, I think that just makes such a big difference. And especially with having that value of a brand to it, it's and by the way, we've done, if I may speak on my own behalf, we've done a really good job on putting something together because Courtne and I had a discussion about wanting to invest a certain amount of money to get the branding done, and we decided not to because it just didn't make sense considering the budget that we've laid out for getting this MVP out. So we decided to do this in-house, and we still got something really nice, which is the point that I wanted to make, is I want to have something that we can scream from the top of the roofs that we want to show the entire world because it just looks so nice. Because even some of the competitors like that, the ones that we've covered in the first episode, which is funny, Courtne, because you also got feedback from people using that product that they liked using the product, but they also hated it because the UX was just horrible and the UI just looked terrible, right?
Yeah, literally someone came up to me and he was literally like, bro, I pay simple payments, not simple payments, sorry, simple invoices. I pay them $20, $30 a month, and I've been paying them for years, and I've hated it because it just looks so ugly and they haven't updated anything in so long. And immediately was like, let me get your email for the waiting list.
Yeah. So, based on that feedback, and obviously Courtne and I aligning, we decided to really make sure that we invest a lot of thought and energy into having a really solid branding behind the product itself, which also we're going to cover in this call. And as I said, I'm pretty excited to show you. I don't know if you've seen anything, but
I haven't seen anything.
Wojtek's done a good job, man. Big kudos to Wojtek.
Shame.
Cool.
Well, I'm very excited, I must admit. I just gave Wojtek a brief on what I think, and I'm going to include that loom now because I went over my principles around why I think, at least for MVP, honestly, just steal design. Don't, sit there and make a big thing, just like great artists copy, but the really incredible artists steal. But I'm excited. So I think let's get into it. I think share your screen and let's walk through everything. I'm excited.
All right. Hey, Wojtek. So I just finished putting this together for you. So I'm going to send you the Figma file. I'm going to send you all of the fonts that go with it, and then obviously send you the loom as well. And I think that this should sort of paint a little bit of a picture for the design that I'm looking for or that I envision. But then I'm excited, obviously, to see you run with it. And then I think we'll iterate on it. I'm going to go through this in a second. You're welcome to walk me through like your design process, and I'm happy to follow. But from my perspective, I think the number one priority from a design standpoint is to finish the app icon. And I know that that's not actually that important as far as driving results and obviously building the product. But I do think if we collaborate on the app icon, we'll be able to figure out the design language. And then once the design language is done, then it makes the design a lot easier versus building, like a page and then having to do that. Because I think an app icon really solidifies what type of feel the product is going to have, more or less. But I might be wrong. But my general gut feeling tells me that from this, you should take all of this. Let me know if you disagree with any of it, and then of course we'll chat about it. But I think the next step is the icon, and then from there we move on to the rest. I don't know, but you let me know. All right, let me just explain what's going on here. So with kind of the ethos that we have with this product, trying to keep it very simple, very lean, but also beautiful, I don't think that we need to reinvent the wheel at all. I think we should look to companies that have already perfected their design language and most likely spent a lot of money sort of figuring out what works, and not necessarily copy, but just draw an enormous amount of inspiration. I think, when we're in version 2, 3 of the product, we can, of course, do our own thing. But I just think for version 1, we should just take ingredients from companies that are doing it well, combine it into our own little recipe, and then copy, right? So what I have done here for you is I put together a couple things. This is sort of the design file, which has the key elements that I would assume that you would need. And then this is sort of an explanation. And then these are just like a mood board thing, which I'll explain in a bit. So we started off by saying that we want to sort of be the Zapier, quote unquote, of payments. And I think that really encompasses what we're trying to do, because obviously we're trying to give people the ability to build logic with payments, which haven't previously been able to do or hasn't previously been possible. And obviously Zapier does that for apps and automation. Zapier also has taken something quite complicated, which is, connecting APIs and code and whatever, and they've simplified it for everyday normal people to use, which in essence is sort of what we're trying to do as well. And then I think they also just have a really good looking product, and they're quite successful, and they also have absolutely dominated their market. All the competitors are miles behind Zapier. So what I've done is I've sort of scanned the Zapier website and pulled elements from them. So this is what I think our language should look like. I think our primary font, so like for headers, for titles, for everything, should be this font. It's called, I might pronounce this wrong, it's called Degular. I'm going to send you the font file. It's basically a custom font that you have to buy, which I did, and so I have the font file. So I'll just send it to you, and then you just install it on your computer, and then you'll be able to use it. The secondary font is called GT Alpina. It's also a custom font that you have to buy, which I have, and so I can send you that as well. And then I think you can mix the two together in a sentence in order to kind of encapsulate a point. So if you want to say something like, actually, this is a good example. Fonts are mixed for highlighting points, right? So obviously here you're trying to highlight this phrase, and so you'd obviously combine this font with that, and then obviously put it in a different color. And then for all of the subtext, so pretty much the text on the rest of the page, I think we should just use Inter. Inter is obviously the font that Google is really fond of. It's the default in most browsers. It just looks very good. It's very clean, and it's widely available. So I think those should be our three fonts. Degular for anything primary bold that we want to call out. GT Alpina for secondary headings, which is the H2. And then also, if we're trying to like highlight something cool, and then just the rest of it will be Inter. I think that we need three primary colors. If we have more colors than that, I think it breaks the design language too quickly. So again, not trying to reinvent the wheel here, just taken what I liked from Zapier. This is obviously the bright orange. This is the dark color, and then this is the light color. I really like the fact that this is not white, but it's close to white. So for example, on the background of the landing page or the website or even the product, instead of making it white, we can make it this slightly off-white color. I think it just looks nice. I think the orange is really cool. Number one, it stands out great. But number two, it's really different than pretty much any other payment software. Simple Invoices, PayFunnels, Stripe, all of them are like a blue. And I just think that this is like very bright in your face, which is what we're trying to go for. So yeah, that's the colors. That's the fonts and sort of how I think it should be used together. Then just to explain, my ideas, I think first, we should stick to this. I think we should try and limit to only using these colors and only using these fonts. I think that all of the pages in our product, so at the top of every single page in the product, I think should be this bright orange bar. And this is a concept that I played around with a few of my previous ventures, and I really liked it. But essentially, it's if someone sees that orange bar at the top of the page, they know that they're in your product. And it sort of just identifies itself as part of your design language. So, Apple is really famous for this with their, I actually have my phone here with me, the little like notch at the top of an iPhone, right? That is Apple's design language. Like if you look at any iPhone screenshots, it always has that little notch. And so immediately when you see anything that has a notch like that, it's an Apple product. Because even on an iPhone, the camera is like very tiny. They don't have to have that full notch, but they include it because it's part of their design language. And I think a part of ours should be that orange bar. And then also if we have like bubbles on a website, it will have the orange bar at the top. That's just an idea that I had. I think the overall like design-ish that we should go for is very rounded, very bubbly-like. So, what do I mean by that? I mean things like this, right? You can see it's like very round, very bubbles. Notion actually does the same thing on their site. They have a lot of bubbles, very round. I think most modern websites are doing that now, where it's just like super round. And, it looks like floating bubbles across the site. Here you can see as well, floating bubbles, like everything is like round. Yeah, that was my point there. I think that we should somehow try and incorporate emojis throughout the product, because what we're essentially trying to do is we're trying to say, hey, we're payments, but we're payments for like 2024, and we're payments for people who are essentially internet entrepreneurs, right? They use technology a lot. We're not a payment software for someone who is like a gardener or a local business owner and trying to like send their first invoice, because obviously they're not going to benefit from all the logic and everything else. We want to say, hey, we're the software that you can send invoices in Slack, right? And that should be an enormous USP, but like that means that they need to use Slack, or they need to know what that is. And I think one of the way to kind of encapsulate that younger-ish and more tech-savvy demographic is by using emojis. and essentially just saying, look, we're not a typical finance company. And this is an example that I found that I liked. This is obviously a heading. Improving your reach is easier than you think, but then you can see that they threw in that emoji over there. And I just think that looks really cool. I think it looks quite nice. And then you can see again, they have their bubble design. So this is sort of, if I envision the landing page, I envision something like this. And I think, that's quite cool. Notion also used a lot of emojis. That's why like the icon for every page in Notion is an emoji. I think that they were trying to go after the same thing and it worked pretty well for them. So again, I like the concept, so I don't think we should reinvent the wheel. And then as much as possible, I want to draw from the design of Things 3. Okay, so I don't know if you know what Things 3 is. This is a screenshot I took from their product, and then this is their app icon. So Things 3 is it's not really a project management tool. It's actually just like a task management tool. But I think that they are an enormously good source of inspiration for what we're trying to do, because they built their product like many years ago and they basically have changed nothing. They've released a few small little bug updates, but basically they've changed nothing. They still are probably one of the most downloaded and used project management tools ever, which is a very competitive space, and they consistently win all of Apple's like design awards, etc., despite the fact that they made their design like so long ago. So I just think it's a really good testament for incredible design, but also the reason people keep coming back to them and they keep using them is because they're super simple. Build once and forget, and then also just like very clean UI, not having a load of extra shit inside there. So if you have a look at like their UI, it's like super simple. And the same story with their app icon. So I think when we're trying to design the pages in the product, we should refer back to that and copy as much as possible in terms of the way it feels, and the way small things like in the payments part, we'll probably have to switch between like successful payments and failed payments. This is how they've done that switch, right? The tag thing there, which I just think looks really cool. This is like their iconography. So I think, not necessarily for the landing page, but for the product, we should try and draw as much from them as possible. If our product feels like it was built by the same team that built Things 3, then I think we've done an exceptional job, is basically what I'm saying. Okay, so now let me just quickly annotate and explain these images, just so you know why they're here. Okay, so this one, I just wanted to show you the incorporation of the emoji. I think that was quite cool. Here, this is like a finance example of like a dashboard. And I think, again, I just wanted to show you the rounded design throughout. Here, I wanted to show you, again, the rounded design, and also it incorporates a little bit of the orange color. And then also, this is obviously Things 3. And if you put these two next to each other, it looks very similar to Things 3. You can see they've got that rounded like accent around it. I think that's why I put these two next to each other, so you could sort of see that. This is a screenshot of a guy I follow on Twitter who's quite good at design, and he built this like dashboard thing. And because the primary home screen of our product is essentially going to be a dashboard, I know we're not enabling people to do like dragging and dropping things yet, at least in V1, but we are enabling people to turn things on and off. I think that this is quite cool. If you have a look at the way their dashboard looks, you can see there's significant spacing. It's very rounded. And then if you hover over it, there's just an on and off switch. I don't think we'll have the move and the edit, but just the on and off switch I think is decent. Then these two examples, if I envision the landing page for our product, so like the primary page that someone is going to come to before they sign up, I think it should look exactly like this. I think it should be very simple, where it's the icon in the left, sign in button on the right. I think we're going to have a one-page landing page for the product. So there will be a nav bar, very similar to this, but it's not going to link out to different pages. It's just going to scroll to different sections on the page. I think that's super simple, and I really like this. I think if we were to change this to orange, then I think we have an incredible product page for us. This over here could be screenshots of the different widgets that we have on our dashboard. The font is good. Like I just love everything about this design. I'm actually going to come back to this company just now. So this encapsulates the vision for what I sort of want the brand to look like, but just with our colors and fonts. And then this is a separate page on the website, but you can see it's the same company, same similar design, language, and style. Okay, so then we come to app icon. So this is the Things 3 app icon, which I really like. And then this is this app icon. So this company is called workos.com. They're actually a very boring company. They have a very boring product, but it works and they make loads of money. Now, if I have a look at these two app icons, I love this icon. The reason I like it is because it's simple. It's essentially geometric shapes. This is a bit complicated. You've got like stacked paper, you've got an icon, like you can see that this is 3D rendered. Like this is just a lot of stuff going on. I think that this is what we should aim for. I think we should aim for something that's geometric. I actually really like the, a diamond-like shape. Again, if you were to take the concept of let's not invent our own shit, let's just take inspiration for V1 and just get running as quickly as possible, I honestly think we should just copy this thing entirely, change the colors, and then obviously we can't use a whatever shape is going on here. So we need an idea for something that would represent invoices or payments that would go in the middle. But in general, I like that like diagonal outline shape. I'm very open and eager to see what ideas you come up with as like the centerpiece icon. But yeah, I hope that all makes sense. Let me know if you need any clarity, and I'm looking forward to what we can come up with.
Yeah, cool. All right, so we're going to start with the boring stuff, which is not the visual part. I'll get to that in a second. Let me know if you can see my screen. All right, so what we have done is, first of all, create the product definition document. So based on the flow diagram that we have previously shared, each and every single step is to be defined in a very, very minimal way. And that's exactly what we've done here. So Courtne, we definitely have to go through this. This is not the final version because obviously this is the first time you're seeing it and I want to get your feedback on it. So you have to go through each and every single step. But essentially what we've done here is just specify each and every single purpose of the page and what that page would include. So even for, and there's still some things that you can see here that we need some details on. So for example, Ruben has to still jump in for the logic, but we're 80-90% there. So each and every single step within that flow diagram has like a very simple, straight to the point breakdown of what that page is gonna, have and all of the details and functionality that will be on there. So basically took each and every single step, turned that into this document, and did some, yeah?
Just to cut you off there, your screen is frozen on my side. I don't know if that's just the way I'm seeing it, or if you want to reshare.
Let me check.
Just make this as a recording.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is something that tech problems thus far in the series. So,
is it working now? Oh, wait, this is very strange. Let me see. Can you see anything now or no? Still frozen.
I can see it. It's just like super frozen.
Yeah, very strange. I don't know why it's. All right, let me just try this one then. Yeah, there we go. All right, you should be able to see it now, right?
Yeah, that's working.
Cool. All right, so within the flow diagram, we have all of these steps. And as I said, it's very straightforward, very plain, no distractions, just as simple as it gets, as straightforward as it gets. Each and every single step within this process has an explanation of what needs to happen within that specific section. So as I said, this is still a work in progress. Courtne, you still have to go through this, provide feedback. And as I said, there's still some logic to be added by the team. But as you can see, it's really raw, super straightforward, just explaining everything that needs to be in here with some questions that come your way as well. So once this document is finalized, we're going to move on to the actual design of the product. So as soon as we've defined this, we're going to jump into product design. Then that's going to be followed by with a feedback session, which I think would be cool if we do that live as well. I think one of the things that you and I both really like about this series is the actual raw, unedited, transparent moments. And I think giving feedback would also be something really cool to do. So we can discuss that. And then obviously once we've reiterated the feedback and implemented everything, we're going to have the design handover. And then obviously we're going to plan development. So before I jump into the visual identity, do you have anything you want to share on what I'm showing to you right now, or any questions?
No. So I think, as you said, I guess the only question I had is just on the process. So you're obviously going to send this to me. I'll go through it. I'll highlight, make comments, etc. in Notion. And then how does it work with me interfacing with your team? Do they then read the comment and then sort of implement it, whatever, and then we get on a session, or do we get on a session first, or what does the process look like?
So what we would do is we would gather the feedback, which can be done, well, the way we've been doing it now, and that's something that I really prefer within any business that I interact with, is sending a good loom, gathering all the feedback, sending that over. And because calls always drain energy, even though if they're super well prepared, you can save a lot of time by just shooting a loom and doing a little bit of the groundwork prior to, hopping on a call and going through everything. So what we would do is we would jump in here. You can just comment on each and every single section within Notion. We would adjust and implement the feedback that you give. Then we'll very likely send that to you on Slack again, so that you can have a final check. And once all of that is good, we can go through it one more time on the call. But it wouldn't necessarily be needed to cover this once more on a call if you can just provide feedback in Slack, because all we need is just this document to be signed off and make sure that everything is thought of in writing, so that we can jump into the product design.
Got it. Okay, cool. So then, no, I don't have anything to add. The only thing I just want to reiterate, I think we said this in earlier sessions, but I personally am finding this very useful. Like, I've dealt with a lot of different product teams around product development. And this is probably the most efficient way I've seen a product being built, because you and I probably have also, designers, I think you even said this yesterday, they have a tendency to spend a lot of time fucking around in Figma, and they create beautiful things, but if they're being paid by the hour or anything like that, like, development becomes expensive very quickly. And I think especially with a project like this, there's a few micro technicalities that are important to understand. Like, for example, the not setting up a subscription, but billing as one-off payments, small things like that. And even the logic and the design. And I was thinking yesterday, the way I think the onboarding flow should go is we obviously get them to log in with Stripe and then immediately prompt Slack. I think just doing the connections all at the same time. Small things like that are very easy to explain in words in a document like that. But if you're doing it over designs, like, it's calls, it's time. It's also like technical barrier. I mean, I'm lucky because I know how to use Figma, right? Like, I can play around. I would imagine a lot of the clients that you work with, it's the first time they've seen Figma. And so if they're trying to interface with designers in Figma, that's probably like another whole hassle, right? And a lot of learning time for them, where anyone can edit a document like this.
And the thing is, especially working with founders, they are super enthusiastic about the products they're building. So they have this big vision. And while we're defining one of these documents, or let's say we wouldn't use a document like this, we jump into Figma, they're all out of a sudden going to add all of these ideas. And this essentially becomes a point of reflection that we can just refer to and just be like, this is the mission. This is what we have aligned on. This is what is included within the scope, the lean MVP that we have aligned on to go to market within a time frame of XYZ. Anything else that you add is not going to be fit in there. And let's store these ideas. So it's kind of a safety net or like would you call that? Like a shield that the team can use as well when people start dunking other requests onto them, which is very natural. Like, it happens as you go through these things, like how you said yourself just now, we should do, the Slack integration directly within the onboarding. But that's exactly why we do such much exploration and strategy around what we're building prior to putting a pen on paper or jumping into Figma or starting to hit lines of codes, because it's going to save us so much time down the line. While it may feel like a little bit of quite an investment from a time perspective in this phase, but the amount of time that it's going to save us in the design and development phase is enormous. So it's in two ways: one, to just streamline the entire process, and two, also have that really clear reflection point that the entire team can refer to what is being built and not be distracted by the excitement of the founder, because it's super tough to navigate around. And I notice it myself even every now and then, like, I want to build everything. I want to do this. I want to do that. But if we have a document that we can just rely on, it's like, hey, this is what we've agreed on. This is what we've all signed off on. If you really wouldn't have wanted that specific thing in there, it should have been brought up in that phase. We're just doing this in a different scope now. So it's actually super useful for us as a company as well to just keep everyone aligned on what we're building without any distractions.
Yeah, so 100%. If you're a founder thinking you're building anything, I would adopt that. I think it's really a best practice. One thing before we get into design, because that's what I'm excited for, I also just want you to briefly touch on here is you made a couple points there that everyone signs off on the scope, and then we start building, and then we are committed to delivering what was in the scope. One of the things we haven't spoken about, because we're essentially pooling each other's resources, so we're in a bit of a unique situation, but for a lot of founders, budget and forecasting how much this is going to cost me and also how long it's going to take probably is, a thing that's really center in their mind, especially if they have investors. And I think a document like this
Yeah.
is also very useful, because assuming it's all finished and signed off and I'm happy and you're happy and everyone's got their pieces together, I assume the next step is you take that and you say, okay, well, now we know it. This is how much it's going to cost, and this is how much time it's going to take to build. And then I can take that information and then look at my cash balance and say, okay, well, maybe we remove this, we do this, whatever we do. Or I go to investors and say, this is the time frame, this is the cost. Like, as a founder, that's very important for me to know what I'm doing. And then also I can hold your team accountable to, but you agreed on this for this amount in this time. So if it's either going over or it's taking longer or whatever, it's on you, right? Because you agreed to it.
Exactly.
And vice versa. Also, I don't get hit with costs that I didn't expect, and investors and stuff. So can you maybe just briefly talk about like how you found the founders that you've worked with have dealt with that? Because I think that's super, super useful. A simple document like this, like the flow diagram and the document, doesn't have a high cost to build, right? For us. And for any founder, I assume. The next steps are where the expenses come in. So I think another thing that I think really is useful here is me able to know this is what's going on, this is the cost, this is the time, and your team's aligned to it. So do you want to just touch on that briefly? Because I think a lot of people would benefit.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only investment that you need to create that clarity is knowledge and time. And what we've noticed is that, to my opinion, we're really seeing a shift on how products are built. I'm personally not too big of a fan of raising a bunch of money and then trying to, build out the product and pray for product market fit. I think both you and I, Courtne, we've bootstrapped everything we've done, everything. And that's because we have the knowledge and resources and also the mindset to just fuck around and find out. And that's how we've got to where we are. We've been able to just adapt to the challenge, or like just absorb the knowledge that we knew we needed to get the challenge, to overcome the challenge that we faced in each and every single scenario, from personal things to business things. And I'm starting to see, especially for our generation and with the era of content, bootstrapping is, in my opinion, the new way to go, where you can build something very lean. You can leverage community by talking about the product, sharing the processes, and then go to market. Now, to create that understanding around budget, and if you obviously were to go down the traditional route of wanting to raise some funds, you can get, you should start small. That's my advice. And the reason why is because you don't need $1 or $2 million to build out a product, unless you're trying to, there's, and that's like all about that, Courtne, but that's the traditional venture capital model, where you would, spread 100 million across, 100 startups or whatever, 50 startups. And then if one hits and becomes a unicorn, you've made the investment back. Which again, it works, but we'd like to, Courtne and I have full ownership of this company. I don't think we're going to get investors anytime soon. We've leveraged this cash from cash flow generating businesses that we can invest in here. Now, that's the first point that I wanted to make. That's kind of like my vision on how products are built. If you do want to obviously present something like this to investors, it's actually really good to show that you know your stuff. And the truth is that in order to build something big, you need to start small. And you can present a very big vision which is important if you want to raise money, because if you want to show, hey, I want $2 million on whatever, a 10% valuation, put in the company a 20 million valuation, you need to show a big vision. You need to show how eventually you are worth that valuation at this point of time within the business. But it all starts at that first draft of the core problem of what you're trying to build. And I always use this analogy as of a car, where if someone walks into a dealership and they want to buy a car and this car doesn't drive, no one's going to buy the car. And the same thing applies to building software. Is you need to find out what it is that makes your car drive. And the problem that founders do is they often, build a car and then they start thinking about a panorama rooftop, about a nice interior, a nice steering wheel, a nice dashboard, but they forget to make the car drive. And that's what we're doing here. We're defining the core problem that we're solving with as little effort as possible, with the maximum amount of impact. And we document and put that on paper so that we have a very clear plan that we can present. Now, if you want to then go out and raise big bucks, obviously you present the next steps. But the most important thing is that you define the first core value proposition of the product in its most minimal form, which you then can build on top of. And that's the framework that I've been using for everything that I do, all the products that we build. And we notice such positive feedback from founders, because other than us, just taking our notes and listening to this big vision and writing everything down, like, hey, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and then, you know, bill you 300 or 400K. We do the exact opposite. It's like, fantastic vision, but where do we start? What's the most simple version of the product? Because that's how you bootstrap. That's how you build these stepping stones and get that validation, which increases the chances of you succeeding significantly. So that's kind of just my raw thoughts on the question you asked, Courtne. I don't know if there was anything that you were fishing for in particular, but I just kind of went on a brain dump about, you know, how I feel about this topic and why we do the way we do it.
No, I think what you said there is exactly what I was looking for, which is build this leanest, smallest, raw product possible before anything else. And I've actually changed my opinion on this, right? I used to think, you know, the leanest possible thing is an MVP. I actually think the leanest possible thing is the document you presented, right? Because that basically is a product like this. It's an exact step by step. This is how it's going to work. It just doesn't work yet, right? But you could take that document to an investor, a user, whatever, and tell them, if you read this from top to bottom, that is essentially the flow that a customer goes through. So that is already enough to be like, yeah, this is shit, or this is incredible. So I actually think the simplest version is that document, not an MVP. The MVP is what we're building next, but I want to just highlight that, and I'm glad that you said that. As far as funding goes, the only thing that I would add to that, because I've obviously dealt with numerous founders now that have raised a lot of money, the only thing that I see differently that most people don't seem to understand is, I think in the beginning, it's about the story that you tell. Like, you have to have a good story. And also the founders that are successful with raising money are just good at telling stories. And I think the root cause of the story is being your own user and solving a problem for yourself. I have almost never seen someone solve a problem for something that is so out of their like area of expertise that they've got nothing to it. So there's two things there that I think I want to highlight. One, I'd love for you to chat about your founders and building a community or an audience first, because I think that's a shift in the way we build companies. And I know that you're, you know, really pioneering and pushing that. But again, in order to have a community, you have to, you know, have the problem yourself. So that just comes back to what I'm saying. But secondly, I just want to say, because a lot of people have reached out to me saying, hey, I want to start SaaS. I want to build this. I want to do that. I don't know what to build, even though I have money, budget. I just want to get into SaaS. One thing that I want to make abundantly clear here is we're skipping through a lot of talking to users and asking what their problems are, right? Part of the development is really speaking to customers and saying, what problems do you have? Let's solve it. Like, we have not done that in this series. And the only reason we've skipped all of that is because I'm first and foremost building this product for myself. Like, I actually need it in my own business, number one. Like, it's not like I'm just building it because I think it's a good business model, which I think it is. It's, I actually need this. And I've had to cobble together other tools to achieve what I want. So I already know exactly what I want, number one. Number two, I have used Stripe for a long time, and I'm a victim of paying them a shit ton of money in fees. So if we can build this product, the cost savings alone is worth me doing all of this just on the fees. So that's like it's an instinct point that I have myself. Third, I don't need to go out there and look for users and, you know, put together questionnaires or surveys, because I'm just around these people. Like I mentioned, I was at a party recently, and everyone who was there was basically a potential user for this. And I didn't stage it or organize it. I just got invited and showed up and then started chatting to people. And now I'm getting messages about the product, right? Like, that is it. Like, if I went to an investor and said, hey, I need money, the story that I would be able to tell is, I had a very painful problem and I had to cobble all these things together, and it's costing me loads of money, blah, blah, blah. So I need to build this. And then I have hundreds of people in my network that have the exact same problem, and I'm all friends with them. So I don't even need to ask them for their advice. I can literally just phone them. And when I launch, I don't need money for ads or whatever, because I already have users. And by the way, the partner that I'm building this with, the technical co-founder, he's also going to be a user of the product on day one, because he has the same problem.
Exactly.
Like, that is a powerful story, right? And that also, by the way, the people that I was at that party with, and even you, it's not location dependent. We're all over the world. So immediately you have a massive TAM, right? A massive market to address. And I think most people don't have that. So that's just like one thing I wanted to caveat. But before we get into design, I know that I'm excited for, just talk to me about the audience first approach with the communities, because I think that's important.
Yeah, no, and I just want to very quickly shine some light on what you just said, because it's exactly how even the big like, it's the story behind the big companies. If you look at Airbnb, the founders were in San Francisco, all the hotels were booked out, and they were like, fuck, we got to sleep on the street. How do we solve this? There's so many other tech founders that are with us, you know? So they started to pay friends that had apartments in San Francisco to rent out a room. And that's how Airbnb started. Same thing with Uber, literally no taxi available. So they were like, how can we solve this problem? So it really comes down to understanding a problem where you live the pain, you understand it. And that's also allowing, which leads into your question, that community first approach. Because when you do understand the pain, pain is a very strong emotion, and communities at its essence are about connecting and having common ground. That's why, people with the same interest in a football club, they're a community because they support the same football club. They're very passionate about a certain player and his way of positioning and whatever that person represents, right? So the community first approach is something that I see as the future of majority of the companies, where there is a big reason why people such as Cristiano Ronaldo are amongst the highest paid athletes, because he is a brand. He is a person with a voice, with a mission in himself, and he's associated with a sports club. Now, a brand such as Nike obviously pays him a lot of money to make sure that he is attached to their brand, because he has a community of fans that resonate with him as a person, that aspire him for who he is. And the same thing is what we're doing, where we face a problem, we talk about this problem in formats such as a series as this, or even within our network, and we attract people that understand that pain. They understand the pain, they know what problem we're solving, and by using and leveraging today's possibilities of technology, where you can actually curate that audience and build an email list, build a community on platforms such as School or whatever, or build your audience on Twitter, YouTube. You curate that audience that resonates with the pain, and you build a community around that through the solution, and have people connect and everything that comes with the actual, with an actual community. Now, why do we call this a community first approach? Is because once you have that pool of people, you get people to talk to, you get people to get feedback from, you get to get that validation that you want to use to drive your decision making. Because the thing and that's like the big venture capital money trap. You raise a fuck ton of money, you start building, you go back into the rabbit hole, you don't leave your apartment for months with an entire team that's probably paid a little bit too much because you got funding, and then 8 months in, you build this entire product and you find out that no one wants to use it. But if you completely reverse that, where you start talking to the audience and you understand the pain, and you live through it, and you present them with potential solutions in as simple as the form of the document that Courtne just mentioned, you get that validation, and you use that to take the next step, take the next step, take the next step. And if you take enough steps, you start running, and then all out of a sudden you build a unicorn. Like, that's how it all starts. Obviously there's a massive time span there, but that's how it really starts. So community first approach, in my opinion, is the future. It's allowing you to bootstrap companies from the ground up, to get that validation, to make sure that you're on the right path, save a lot of money, and most importantly, have complete ownership. Because in the end of the day, if you really ask every single entrepreneur what it's all about, it's about freedom. And I can tell you, when you have massive funds or venture capitals breathing down your neck on why the product hasn't made them their return yet after 3 years, and pumping in a fuck ton of money, you're going to get sweaty. I wouldn't dare to wear a gray t-shirt, because I would have, soaked armpits by then. And that's another thing, that when you go community first, is you take control, you keep control of the company, and you can really just leverage on that feedback to drive decision making.
Awesome. And yeah, I also think, like, if you can't build a community, that's like a telltale sign that, like, your audience that you're going after, your market just doesn't exist, right? And so there's no point building a product. But let's get into design. I'm excited for this.
There we go. So with the lean resources that we have used to put this together, and again, big shout out to Wojtek, I'm going to take you through the process. So we started with some very simple, straight to the point stuff. What fonts are we using? What colors are we using? And we, as Courtne said very well, companies like Zapier have spent billions of dollars researching all of this. So why reinvent the wheel and just try and, copy, for at least in this bootstrap phase, what works? Like, why don't we just look at what is working for them? So that's exactly what we did. Obviously gave it our own twist. And I think this is another lesson that I think is important. And it kind of, relates back to what I said. I have this very strong love-hate relationship with design, because obviously I find it extremely important. But on the other hand, copying someone who's already done it, who's already figured stuff out in this phase, is something that I wouldn't, have to think twice over, because it's allowing us to keep up the pace, have something very nice, and make sure that we have something to launch with, and then once cash comes in, we can obviously redo everything. So we started with the fonts, which you've all seen, some values about, you know, what we have to do, some inspiration around the product, what is it that we like, some ideation around the logo, you know, took a look at some other things, and that's when we put together this. So what you're looking at is the first iteration of simple payments. Courtney, what's your first thought?
No, I love it. It's exactly what so I'm going to embed the loom where I went through like that Figma file in depth, and no, I love it. It's literally, I think it's perfect. I think the icon, there's a lot you can describe about it. This is the reason why I like icons like that, right? Like the flow between dots, I can just make up a whole bunch of bullshit. Like that could be the
Exactly.
processing between the customer and Stripe and us. Like there's so many cool things. At the end of the day, it's just a very simple, clean logo. It looks great. It's cool. It's got all the colors. Like, I mean, yeah, I think we roll with it. How quickly, and also, by the way, just to like create reference here, correct me if I'm wrong, Wojtek started working on this yesterday, right?
Correct.
So this is a 24-hour turnaround, and most people will spend weeks, months on this stuff. And I think we have something perfect.
Yeah.
I like it. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it, man. When Wojtek showed me, I'll send a screenshot that you can, you know, pop on the screen right now, where I was like, "You beast!" I literally said that. I said, "You animal, bro. You nailed this. This is incredible." And just as how you said, connecting the dots between different parties and everything, that's what this logo tells me, and it's just in line with what we're building, and it looks super professional. That's, you know, it's like this, you know, this looks like a very fast,
Looks like
young.
you spent a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. Without spending a lot of money. Yeah.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's I'll send you, of course, all the links so you can have a review, and obviously we can incorporate some feedback. I think we can make a few more iterations around the font itself. Maybe, you know, I don't have the font in here, so I can't make the adjustments, but maybe make this italic or play around with some of this, but we'll figure that out. I think we're very close to the vinyl version, because yeah, as I said, I saw this, I was like, bro, you're an animal. This is incredible.
No, I agree. I think what's going to be great for the people watching this is they'll see the loom, and then they'll see this, and they'll see like how close this ties into what the inspiration was, like from the design of the icon, and then also the colors. Like I think they'll really get value of like, okay, this is exactly what they're going for. So I think the icon's perfect. Nothing I would change. The font, yeah, maybe we change it to one of the fonts in the file, but other than that, like again, I think we just move with it. I think we can say branding, design, language is done. Now we move on.
Yeah. Cool.
So is there anything else, Daniel, that you
All right.
want to
No, as of now, the next steps are for us to find the product definition. So I'm going to send that over after this call so you can go through it, provide feedback, and then once we have all of that, we're going to start product design, which I hope to create a similar impact of what we did just now with the branding.
No, that's incredible. Okay, so I think we have our next steps. We have our marching orders. I think the way that I think we should approach this is, I think on day 0 or day 1, we'll get our first 10 users just from the people that we already have in the network and the waiting list that I have. But I think what I would like to do on our next session is walk through the actual process I tell most founders to take in getting their first 10 users and then going from 10 to 100 users. And then what I'd like to do is have you listen to that and then just get your insight on it, because you've obviously helped build tons of products. And there's some things that I think we overlap on. Like I also agree with the audience first stuff. But there's also some things that I, kind of meander off the path a little bit with building out sales teams and sort of going that whole route. And I'm a big proponent of paid ads, just because I think it's a lot quicker, right? If you have the budget, like you just test very quickly and you can move through things at lightning speed. So I'd love to sort of get your impact and feedback on that. And then I think one thing is time frame wise. So once we approve that document, how long does it usually take to turn a document into a Figma thing that we can play around with and approve the design?
This product is relatively simple from a UX UI perspective, which I think is a challenge in itself. Like the simpler it is, the harder it is to get it right. I think building very efficient, simple stuff is very hard. But I think after we've defined the document as early as a week and a bit, we can at least show you the first draft that we can bite ourselves into.
Awesome. Okay, so I think then that's what people can expect. A general idea on how to approach marketing, and then we'll update people on the product as we go. And then, yeah, super excited for this. Also, so like now I can save that icon and put it on a website and say something is coming.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
But cool.
Cool.
I think that's a wrap for the session, unless you've got anything else.
No, as soon as you start pumping out marketing stuff, even on IG, I have a decent reach. Make sure to tag me because I'll repost so we can maximize the exposure.
Yeah, awesome. I'll do so. Cool. We'll see everyone in the next session.